And to kick us off, I'm going to invite to the mic Alistair Brown, who was UK's first Chief Resilience Officer and is Head of Sustainable Glasgow PPP. He's an expert not only in energy, carbon, its ramifications in health, trading standards, but also resilience, another project close to my heart. I'm involved in some European resilience projects, and stunningly, head of the European Green Capital bid, a job I don't think I envy. So welcome to the mic, Alistair.
Thank you very much. Actually, the European Green Capital is a EU-run project, so I'm not too sure whether we'll be bidding for that again in the future, but we'll see. Bristol might be the last and the only UK city that wins the European Green Capital. I've only got 15 minutes. We're just going to talk about the Future City Glasgow project. What I want to do is maybe, rather than go into a lot of detail about some of the technical issues behind it, I'll just give you a quick overview of the project and maybe pick up on 3 themes. How the future city and the use of smart technology relates to sustainability and to resilience. How we use it to engage with communities and with business and what the benefits of that are. And also maybe looking forward, what's how do we build a platform for the future? To those of you who don't know, Glasgow was the Future City Demonstrator City. Innovate UK provided £24 million worth of funding to a city in the UK. It was quite a competitive process. I think there was maybe about 50 cities applied. And Glasgow were shortlisted with London, Peterborough and Bristol, I think it was. And we were the successful city. And we based our bid on 3 main components. Firstly, there was the operations centre, which I'll talk a wee bit more about. And this is now a state-of-the-art facility that we run in the East End of Glasgow. Secondly was a number of demonstrator projects to do with intelligent street lighting, energy, transport and travel. And thirdly was the open data platform. And data is very much where I think many cities are going. And again, I'll pick up on that as we go through the 15 minutes. So the project, or the Future City Glasgow programme, is now complete. We finished it in probably the end of 2015. It took more than the 18 months that we were given, probably roughly 24 to 30 months in actual fact to complete. It sounds like you get £24 million, you've got 18 months to spend it. It sounds like a luxury, and I must admit, for those of us who work in the public sector, it's a bit of an unusual challenge. However, it does take a wee bit longer sometimes to get through some of, particularly things like procurement issues, so it did take a little bit longer than we thought. Sustainability and resilience. So, Future City, how does that relate to Glasgow's sustainability and resilience? I talked about the Operations Centre. The Operations Centre sits in the East End of Glasgow. It's a state-of-the-art facility. It's probably the most advanced in Europe. It primarily consisted of our community safety functions coming together with road traffic management, and also a number of police functions came together as well. So I suppose that in itself is a message. What you had before was previously disparate operations which were able to come together, start to share information, start to share facilities. And indeed there are, I think, roughly about 600 cameras which are available to the Operations Centre, available to all the public agencies that are within there. Because we were able to invest in the Operations Centre, we were able to bring in digital technology, which allows you to start using video in a way that maybe you didn't before. And really, instead of having an operative sitting at a screen, just staring at the screen, looking for things, the screen was then able to start telling, or is able to start telling the operative, this is what you need to look for. So if you see somebody in a school on a Saturday night, the technology acknowledges that this isn't correct. Schools aren't supposed to be open on a Saturday night. Why is there movement there? And it will alert the operative to the fact that something's not right. So the technology starts to become much more part of the whole control mechanism that we utilise within the operations centre. And indeed, over the next few years, we'll bring more things to the operations centre. Maybe some of the street lighting, for some of our waste operations might go to the operations centre as well. I'll maybe pick up on that a wee bit further down the line. And indeed, we'll be looking for other public agencies. The Regional Transport Authority, for example, NHS, some of our arm's length companies. The facilities there is a state-of-the-art facility. Why would you not use it? And indeed, it doesn't have to be restricted to Glasgow. It can be other public sector organisations from outside of the city. And indeed, private sector organisations could get access to the facility as well. The pictures actually on the slides haven't really got a lot of visuals, but if you look at that particular slide, the backdrop is the operations centre, which sits at London Road, near Celtic Park, if you know Glasgow. So the operations centre was really a key part of what we did in terms of developing in Future City Glasgow. We also spoke about resilience, and resilience is quite an emerging topic for many cities worldwide. Glasgow are one of the Rockefeller Foundation's 100 resilient cities. It's a whole new network, and basically what the Rockefeller Foundation have been saying to cities is, we'll bring you together, we'll give you some support, financial and technical, and we want you to develop a resilient strategy for your city. And we've recently just completed ours in Glasgow. We're probably about the 12th or so worldwide to have a resilient strategy. And in that strategy, there's a number of actions, but quite a few of them, and it's not just coincidental, but quite a few of them relate to data. And what you're starting to find across the Resilient Cities network is that there's a number of cities who are clearly in the field of thinking about data and what data could do for them to make them more resilient. And you're probably, within 100 cities, you'll get a small, maybe a cohort of a subgroup of cities who are interested in open data and what open data can do. And when you look worldwide, I mean, different cultures, different political organisations, it's clear that some cities will be more adept at being able to utilise open data than others. In the UK, we should be able to do it. And indeed, many parts of Europe, you should be able to provide open data. And that open data is something that you can then make available to your communities to make them more resilient. And if I was to be honest, what does that mean? What data sets are we talking about here? For me, this is quite an emerging science. So what makes a city more resilient is something that we'll be testing in the next few years. What data sets do we have that we currently make available to the public and to communities that will make the city more resilient? And indeed, where are the gaps? What data sets should we be providing to make the city more resilient? You know, resilience is something that's specific to any given city. For Glasgow, we focused a lot on climate change, and we moved on to talk about the social and economic impacts that affect a city's resilience, because essentially what quite often happens is, doesn't matter what the big event might be, it's normally the more vulnerable populations that are affected, whether it's an earthquake or a volcano or a recession. It's normally those who are at the lower, the more deprived communities who are affected primarily, and therefore have to become more resilient. And I think that really a lot of what happens in Glasgow in the coming years will be about us developing the resilience, the social resilience within local communities, and what can we do that will make those communities more resilient. Data is definitely going to play a key part of that. Making data open and allowing communities access to data that they can start to utilise to make themselves stronger will be very important in the coming years. And that will be a key part of our own resilience strategy. Community and business engagement, that's been a key part of what we've been doing under the Future City Glasgow. We worked with a number of small and medium and even large businesses in relation to developing some of the demonstrators. No doubt Brian might pick up on some of that under intelligent street lighting later on. But we worked with a number of local companies as well. And really it's now about, okay, so we have worked with businesses in Future City smart technology. what more can we do in the coming years. Those of you who are familiar with Glasgow will know that we struck a city deal in 2014, 1.1 billion of infrastructure development over the next 20 to 30 years. But the first project which has been delivered in Glasgow has been the Tontine building. And the Tontine building was a historical council building which we've now converted into an innovation centre. And what we're looking to do here is this is a place, a focus where we can get businesses to come and local communities to come, and they can start to experiment their ideas. During the Future City programme, we ran a number of hackathons, which were great. They allowed the juices to flow to get some ideas coming out. You gave them a bit of beer, some beer and a bit of pizza, and it really just got people together over a weekend. And they came out with some really good ideas, and the best ideas were given a financial award. But we're now really thinking about, okay, that's fine, so how do we get some of these ideas and some of this innovation into the local economy? There's an economic strategy which will come out for Glasgow in the autumn this year, and a lot of that will be about how do we develop new industry in Glasgow, new technology. How do we get the digital industry in Glasgow to become more advanced? And how do we get jobs from this? Jobs and the job market is really important in a city like Glasgow. We talked about resilience earlier on. Resilience is about, for Glasgow, is about the transformation of Glasgow from an industrial city as it once was into a new and a modern and a sustainable city, which has a whole different industrial sector than what we used to have. It's now, we now have more renewables jobs in Glasgow than any other part of Scotland. So it's not just about the old traditional major industries, it's about new industry and how do we develop that. And the Innovation Centre at the Tontine is very much about bringing businesses together so we can start to see how do they get their ideas to become reality, and how do we know what the right outcomes will be, not just for the business but for the city, and what are we doing in terms of our own local economy that will enhance that experience for those businesses. So that's going to be very much a key part of where we're going in the future. And also community engagement. The new Community Empowerment Act recently has come through the Scottish Parliament. It's very much about giving responsibility to communities to think how they can start to adapt and adopt. And this is very much about what I said about resilience. Communities will become more resilient when they start to be able to adapt and adopt a lot more than maybe in the past. In a place like Glasgow, if I was to be honest, everybody saw the local authority as being the council will sort whatever it happens to be. In the future, it's not going to be like that. The council will not sort everything for you. Local communities will have to start to manage and take responsibility and ownership of their own assets. And that's probably an emerging discussion in Glasgow. It happens already in some other UK cities. If you go to cities across the globe, it's very much the norm. And we need to get Glasgow into that kind of space. So Future City Glasgow was an opportunity for us to develop tools which would allow communities to start to enhance their own ability to take ownership and to take management of assets. Renewables mapping was one of the Demonstrator projects. So we took the information we already had on vacant and derelict land in Glasgow. We put it together with things like sunshine records, development applications, and we were able to develop a tool which gave you an idea of where which lands might be available for solar panels in the future. And it's not just for the council to go away and develop PV projects, but it's also for us to be able to encourage communities to do that. And that, again, that sharing of data allows communities to start thinking about what they could do within their own local area. And the last area, just the last theme to touch upon, was just where are we going in the future? Where is this going to take us? It's all very well having delivered the Innovate UK's Demonstrator stuff over the last 2 years, but how do we start to build on that? And I think when you look at where Glasgow is just now, we're in a strong position, I think, in relation to future cities. I know Michael will talk about what he's doing at Glasgow University. Some of the other academic institutions have been very strong, and as a city, I think we've been really well positioned in relation to technology and to future cities. One or two other cities in the UK are in a similar position: London, Birmingham, Bristol. Manchester have all been kind of pushing forward with their agendas as well. So for us, it's about, there's really two things, I suppose. Firstly, I work for the City Council. I am a local authority employee. Public sector funding, as you know, has not been particularly good in the last couple of years, and in Scotland it's been a real challenge over the course of the next couple of years for us to balance the budgets. It doesn't look like it's going to get any better after that either. So it's been about transforming the council. How can we use technology to bring about service reform? So I spoke earlier on, for example, about waste operations. So can we use chip bins, for example? Can we use technology to make sure that the routes that our vehicles take are the most efficient? And that operations centre I spoke about will be an opportunity for us to bring this through a single location so we can direct the operations from there. Smart parking is another one. Instead of having people driving around the city, can we optimise the technology so we can direct people to where spaces are? Not only does that mean that they get about the city in a much more efficient manner, but it also means that we can maximise our revenue from parking, which is going to be really important in the future. So transforming the council and council services is going to be a key area. Transforming the city as well is going to be a key area. At the end of the day, what the council does is important. In a city like Glasgow, we facilitate, but it's very much about what other people do as well. So I've already spoken about local communities, I've talked about local businesses, we've talked about other public sector agencies. We all really have to pull together in order to achieve the best for Glasgow. So this becomes not just about transforming Glasgow, the Glasgow City Council, it becomes about transforming the city of Glasgow. And indeed, we have City Deal, as I said earlier on, £1.1 billion worth of projects. These are infrastructure projects. Most of them are in the city of Glasgow, but some of them are outside of the city in the west of Scotland. They're all infrastructure projects, and in the past we probably would have just built a bridge or built a new scheme. We would have done it in a very traditional way. It would have been, there's some houses, build some houses and that's it. We really have to think a lot smarter now, and we are very much pushing for the technology which we've gained through the Future City programme. We're very much looking at that to be implemented and embedded into many of the regeneration projects that take place through City Deal. So things like intelligent streetlights, chip bins, smart parking, some of the energy advances that we made during the Future City programmes, we'll be looking for that to be embedded in regeneration in these areas across Glasgow. We also recently put in a bid for some Horizon funding. Again, who knows what that's going to be in the future. But if it comes to pass, we'll be looking at being able to develop a smart technology area. Keith's going to talk later on about vehicles and electric vehicles. We'll be looking for maybe a hub area in Glasgow. And again, that would come through the funding of the Horizon project. And this is about us being able to say, right, okay, we know that what technology can do for us. We now have to be able to embed it into the projects that we're developing. I think really, just to finish, the key message here is that technology in the future can't be seen by city authorities as being a luxury. It has to be something that is a key component of regeneration. And that is the message that will be going across to developers in a city like Glasgow in the coming years. Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Alistair, thank you.